this video, I'm going to show you how you can strengthen the security of your network and endpoints with EventSentry. EventSentry can, of course, monitor all your event logs, syslog, log files, and so on, but it can also help strengthen the security of your network. Let's say you want to enhance the security of an office building or warehouse, for example. Then it makes a lot more sense to install a fence and secure your doors before you install motion sensors and cameras on the inside. In this scenario, cameras are, of course, important, and they should be part of any comprehensive security strategy for a building, but they're probably not the only thing you'll want, and they're probably not the first thing that you'll install. And the same sort of thinking, of course, applies to your network, right? You'll, of course, want to monitor all your logs, and you'll have to do that. But if your servers are insecure and your endpoints are insecure, you're going to see a lot more noise, a lot more things happening on your network than if you were to secure it in the first place. And that's the whole point of this exercise. And you don't need another tool for this. EventSentry does all of this out of the box. Okay, so how can you do this with EventSentry? We created 3 dashboards that you can import into your EventSentry installation that will help you with this process of strengthening the security of your network and reducing the attack surface. I'm here in the EventSentry web app, and I'm showing you here the Security One Foundation dashboard. So there's 3 dashboards, and if you click on dashboards on the top right, you'll see that I have them already installed here. Security 1 Foundation, Security 2 Attack Surface, and Security 3 Critical Changes. If you do not have these dashboards, then you can simply import them. You'll simply click on Manage Dashboards, click on Import, and if you don't have them already, then they will show up here in this list, and you can simply check them and click Import. So let's start with the first dashboard, the foundation showing missing audit policies. So a solid audit policy is the foundation of all Windows-based monitoring, and a lot of detection rules and compliance reports rely on proper auditing being set up. There's really no useful audit trail without proper auditing. So in a nutshell, when it comes to log monitoring, it all starts with the audit policies. If those are wrong or insufficiently set up, then you'll be missing key information. What we've done here is we've looked at the most common audit policies that you'll want on a Windows network. And if you look at the titles of these tiles, you'll see things like account management that will show you when users are being created, for example. We have detailed tracking that will show you things like process activity. Of course, we also have account logons, policy changes, and so forth. So ideally, what you should see on this dashboard is everything being okay, except for the top middle column, which will show you the number of settings that are being monitored in total. And we are not monitoring what you're configuring on group policies. We're actually monitoring the active audit settings on the endpoint. So if somebody were to go in and configure this correctly, for example, on a group policy, but somehow the machine doesn't get the group policy correctly, or it's being overwritten, then we will still be able to identify that. So again, this is not looking at templates, this is not looking at group policy, this is looking at the actual active audit settings on the endpoints. So looking at this dashboard, we can just pick any tile here, for example. So let's look at the third one here. So the first 2 are okay, everything is set up correctly there. This will show us that there's 5 endpoints or audit settings that are insufficiently set up. So click on the number 5, and this will give us instantly a list, and this will show us, okay, there's 5 hosts that have incorrect settings. And what is incorrect? So we have in the category of detailed tracking, we have plug-and-play events where there's no success auditing and no failure auditing. So we'll want to basically go back into group policy, look for these audit events, and enable success and failure auditing. And you want to repeat that for all the other tiles as well. Again, you can look at this one here, and we'll see, okay, directory servers access and changes are not actually being audited on the domain controller. Now, keep in mind that just enabling auditing doesn't necessarily mean that we're collecting these logs, because some logs can be very verbose, and you may not always want to audit or collect everything. But by enabling auditing, we will ensure that these logs are being generated and written to the respective event log, usually the security event log. Once the log entries are being created, then we can decide what to do. Do we want to store them in a database? Do we want to set up real-time alerts? Do we want to set up some sort of anomaly detection, apply thresholds, and so forth? Now, this dashboard is really just a template. So if there's things that you absolutely don't need, or if there's things that you want to add, then you can definitely customize these tiles. You can remove tiles, and you can also edit the tiles, or you can add a new tile to it if there's something else you want to audit. Now, to be fair, simply fixing your other policies won't automatically make your network more secure, but it is the lowest hanging fruit and pretty much the requirement for a lot of other features, like I said earlier, to work. But now let's move on to the second dashboard. That is dashboard number 2, attack surface. And that's where things get really interesting, because in this dashboard, we're looking and we're utilizing validation scripts. So as it says right here, validation scripts continuously evaluate OS settings against recommended security, best practices, and compliance configurations. So in this dashboard, we've sort of separated our network into 3 major categories. As you can see in the columns here, we've got servers, domain controllers, and workstations. And then each column, each type of machine, then has a few more categories of these validation scripts, right? So if let's just look at the middle one here, domain controllers. So there we have best practices validation scripts, of which 1 failed. Then we have security, where 24 failed, and so forth. Ideally, you want to see OK in all of these tiles to make sure that your network is secure and that all of your settings adhere to best practices. Now, the validation scripts can also be used for compliance, but it's a whole other ballgame where you can set up custom dashboards just for your specific compliance requirements. So this is sort of compliance agnostic, and we'll just show you general recommendations that pretty much would adhere to any Windows-based network, whether you have to be PCI, CMMC, NIST, or whatever compliant. So to illustrate how this works, I'm going to just pick one here in the middle. Here it says security. We have 24 validation scripts that failed. So I'm going to click that number, and we'll get a list back. This is all from a single host. Of course, this is a domain controller, and this will show you the name of the script, right? When it ran the last time. It'll also show you the tags that are associated with the script. So usually those would be compliance tags, for example, or best practices and so forth. We can see here security server, NIST 800, 1-800, 171, and so forth. Let's pick one here. Auditing command line data must be included in process creation events. So you can click this. Again, it will show you the tags here, NIST 800, 171, server, desktop, and so forth. So this applies to both servers and desktops. This is also listed on the best practices. It will show you there's a script ID and a description here, the output of the script. And yeah, you can click on remediation steps to not only learn more about what this check does, but also how to remediate it. So here we'll tell you that it's generally recommended to include the command line information from 4688 events that Windows logs. That will show you more details about the process, and here instructions on how to enable this in group policy, for example. And then once you fix it, EventSentry will rerun these checks depending on the setting in the management console. Could be every 12 hours, 6 hours, 24 hours, and then you'll see an update next time you check, and hopefully that, and once you fix it, that will be a passed script and the number will go down. And then there's others here as well. For example, the Windows Remote Management Service must not use basic authentication, for example. There are things like machine activity should be limited to 50 minutes or less before the screen is locked, and things like that. Best practices, here's just one. Deny logon locally users. Deny logon locally user right must be configured, and so forth. This can seem daunting at first when you see this dashboard, and there may be a lot of numbers here, but I would just focus on the ones that are most relevant to you. For example, workstation privacy is probably not the most urgent thing to fix, but security and the domain controller is probably something you want to look at right away. Higher numbers, just especially if you have a lot of machines, the number may be higher, but just fixing one setting may affect a lot of machines, right? So if you have 50 servers you're monitoring, you may see the number 50 there, but just fixing it once may reduce the number of failures by as many hosts as you have, right? So in this particular case, of course, it does not apply. This domain controller does have a lot of settings that need to be fixed, but in general, I would say start with the most important things, and possibly the ones that affect the most machines, to kind of get that number down to hopefully 0. And if there are some things that you see in there that are not relevant to you, if you're saying, yeah, I'm aware of this failed check, but it doesn't apply to us, then you can always go into the management console and you can exclude that script, or you can adjust the reporting that's behind that validation script. And what I mean by that is if you edit the tile here, you will see that this tile references this specific report here. And the report is called Security Domain Controllers. So you can actually go into the reports on the top here, find this report. So let's take a look here. Built-in reports, and you'll see that the attack surface here, all these tiles are actually utilizing these reports here, and you can go in and you can edit them and adjust them as needed. And again, you can remove certain things. If you're saying, I don't really care about privacy, you can simply remove that tile or change it or add another tile. So once you've done this, once you've gone through security dashboard number 1, you'll have your audit settings fixed. So now you know that Windows is properly logging all relevant activity and changes to the security event log. Resolving all the findings of the second dashboard will undoubtedly take some time, but once you've made some progress here, you can really feel good about having reduced the attack surface on your network and increased the security, because you've really strengthened core Windows settings that make it a lot more difficult for attackers to exploit your network and from malware to establish itself. But let's move on to the third dashboard, and that would be the critical changes. So this dashboard will show important changes that recently occurred on your network that you want to be aware of and review. So again, we've got 3 columns here. The first one will show you things like persistent changes like a scheduled task being added, services or drivers being added, for example, software being installed, things of that nature. So with one glance here, you should have a pretty good idea of any sort of substantial changes that have been happening on your network. So looking at this dashboard, we can see here that no scheduled tasks were added. We can see that the firmware update daemon was being installed on the Linux machines. Now, it turns out this is a daemon that's constantly installed and uninstalled, so that's something you'll want to exclude. We can see that Edge was updated. We can see that no critical files were changed from System32, for example, and no changes there in the ARP history. In the middle column, you can see some failed logons on the domain and generic logons. We can see that no accounts are logged out. And on the right pane, we can see changes made to users, for example, group members being added. Some of these tiles utilize a demonitor, so if you don't use a demonitor, you can remove those tiles. Obviously, we recommend utilizing a demonitor. That goes without saying. And on the bottom, you can also see things like policy changes and user logon rights changes. So that's pretty important too. Now, it's important to point out that this is really just a basic check. Obviously, this is not going to show you everything and is not the end all of solutions for network security, but it is something that will help you get some visibility into what's happening on your network and is a good starting point. So like I said, in the other dashboards, you can remove tiles here, you can add other tiles, and of course you can get your own dashboards to show other things that are relevant to you. So just to summarize real quick, with the Security 1 Foundation dashboard, we're identifying all audit policies that are missing on your network. So once you resolve this, you can rest assured that any relevant security entries are being generated and logged to the respective event logs, usually the security event log. Once you've implemented all the validation script suggestions, you'll definitely have hardened your systems, increased security, locked down insecure settings, making it much harder for insiders and outsiders to establish themselves or exploit Windows settings. And with the dashboard number 3, the critical changes, you'll maintain visibility into what's happening on your network. Is software being installed, or scheduled tasks being added, users being created, and so forth. We also have KB articles available for these dashboards. So if you just go to the EventSentry website and go to Support Knowledge Base, and you can just type in dashboard here or click dashboard down here, and you'll see all these 3 dashboards explained in KP articles. Thanks for watching, and good luck securing your network.